Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bobby Huntley. I have some things I want to share with you, and I might as well go ahead and apologize to you right now because this is going to be rather long. I do anticipate it. There's so much I want to share and discuss with you. So I ask for your patience and that you, if you tune in live or watch it later, that you would watch it from the beginning to the end. Some very important information I want to share with you. Some things that may be alarming to some and eye-opening or eye-opener to others. But it is imperative that I get this message out to each and every one of you. I'll wait just a few minutes and so we get someone or some folks to join in on this live broadcast. I will be discussing, excuse me, I want to take my time. I've got so much in my mind I want to relay to you, and I don't want to get ahead of myself. But I will be discussing with you a new organization that has been birthed in the 757. And it's titled 757, The Movement. It Still Takes a Village. Again, 757, The Movement. It Still Takes a Village. And I'll be bringing up that name of the organization as we move through this broadcast, if you will. I'll share with you that the organization itself was established December the 22nd, 2022. And I will share with you why it was formed, the reason and the need for it to exist. Give you some background about who I am. Many of you know me, but then there's many who do not. I retired in 2021, October the 1st, 2021, from the Virginia Beach City Public School System. 19 years with the school division, having worked in the following capacities: security assistant, in-school suspension coordinator, and dean of student at the alternative high school. What I will be sharing with you are things that has everything to do with not only the Virginia Beach City Public School System, but the public school system as a whole. I'm not on to talk about all the other many very dire, important issues that we face as a nation, in our community, in our society. I'm pinpointing on what is taking place in the school systems. Virginia Beach City Public School Systems, to be specific. In my 19 years with the Virginia Beach Public School System, I also worked had a program called the Gentlemen's Club. And I worked that program for 14 years. And I tell everyone that when I talk about the program, that I'm not the one that started the program. But I thank God that He used me to take the program to an even higher level. When I was hired with the Virginia Beach Public School System so many years ago, I first worked at Plaza Middle School for 2 years as a security assistant. And there's a funny story that I often share how it came about with me being a part of the school system. I had just got out of the Marine Corps many years ago after 13 and a half years in the United States Marine Corps. Moved to this area, took various jobs, and one job in particular that I had for quite a few years, I was a manager at Rent-A-Center, the rent-to-own company. In fact, I was the first black store manager in Rent-A-Center in the 757 in the Tidewater area. I was the first black store manager. That is a fact. That's a story all in itself. And I even sold cars for 9 months working for Hall Auto Mall, a job I did not like. But I did it for 9 months and felt this was not my niche. This was not my calling, and walked away from there. And then I began writing and started a career in entrepreneurship as an inspirational speaker, not a motivational speaker, but an inspirational speaker. And I have a dear friend of mine who, a preacher, superintendent locally here, was saying, Bobby, you really should come into the school system and work with these kids. And I would tell him honestly that I don't work with kids. I work with grown men. I don't deal with kids. He said, but your calling is in the school system. I said, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. But he kept saying this to me time and time again when we would meet and fellowship or what have you. And so he began to tell me, well, you know, I know you have your business as a speaker and an author and you travel and things of that nature. He said, but you come into the school system, you work, you get off 3 or 4 o'clock in the evening, your weekends are off, and you get paid in the summer. I said, I'm sorry, what'd you say? Repeat that? I said, yeah, you work 5 days a week, you're off 3 or 4 o'clock in the evening, off on the weekends, you don't work weekends, and you get paid in the summer. That sounds interesting. That would perhaps fit into my schedule, wouldn't interfere with what I'm trying to do. And so there was an opening at Plaza Middle School, and I wanted to get my foot in the door, and so interviewed and was hired. In that first year at Plaza Middle School, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed being around the students. I didn't think I would, but I did. And I met a gentleman who had the Gentlemen's Club, Mr. Paul Arrington. I'm calling out names. I'm dropping names today. And he had the program. And he's a teacher at the time at Plaza Middle School. And we became friends. And he's a veteran, retired Navy. I'm a veteran. And so we talked about some things. And he said, well, I don't think I'll be able to do the program next year because he had a lot of commitments, a lot of things going on. Him being a teacher and a lot of work overload. He said, but it's a very important program. I really would love if you would pick it up and continue with it. I said, I'll think about it. So as the school year started the next year, I picked up the mantle and ran with the Gentlemen's Club. And it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And the principal at the time, Mr. Walker, gave me free reign with the program and speaking with the students and liberty to pull them out of classroom if they had disciplinary issues and just discuss issues with them and get them back on the right track. And I really enjoyed it. It felt good to mentor to these young folks. And at the end of that school year, another position opened up at Lansdowne Middle School. And I applied for that position and was hired there for 3 years. I worked there for 3 years. And what's interesting, I'm building this case. I'm taking you somewhere, so let me lay this foundation. And so when I was interviewed for the position as an in-school suspension coordinator, I was asked, if we hire you, will you do the Gentlemen's Club? Will you bring that program here to this school? I'm like, oh, how'd you learn about that? Well, it's going around in the school system. You know, you did such a wonderful job with Plaza Middle School. We've seen the news articles. We've seen the television interviews. And Word of mouth spreads, And so I was like, sure, I'll bring the program. So I worked the program there for 3 years as an in-school suspension coordinator. And what I learned that at the end of that, at either the second year or the third year there, Lansdowne Middle School did a survey. I think they do it at the end of the year to determine where they're at as far as statistic-wise, referrals, attendance, all of those things. And the assistant principal, and I'll drop a name again, Miss Dillon, and they did a graph, the figures, the statistic, the graph was done. She compiled that, and it showed a significant increase in the attendance, a significant decrease in referrals, and the morale of the climate of the school was headed in the right direction. It was doing great. We were doing great things with not only the Gentlemen's Club, but we started a Ladies' Club also. And she contributed all the success at that school that was going on to the Gentlemen's Club. So the question was, what was new? What was implemented that brought about this significant change? And in writing, the documentation is there. It was the Gentlemen's Club. And I loved it there. I had not planned to move on. I was fine to stay there until God had to open another door or whatever the case may be. And I was at Hampton University. They had a youth program going on that summer. And I was there participating in that. And I got a phone call from assistant principal at the alternative high school, which was Central Academy before it became Renaissance. It was Central Academy Alternative High School. And they were interviewing for the position of Dean of Student. So she called me, and I'm in Hampton, and I'm busy, and I couldn't get away. She said, well, I want you to come because I worked with her at Plaza Middle School. She was assistant principal there, and now she's at the alternative school. She thought I would do great in that setting. So I said, listen, I'm here in Hampton. And she said, well, we got to get this done by the end of the day. If you can get here as quickly as possible, we'll wait for you. I said, okay. So made it to the interview. I was interviewed by Mr. Bolton, Michael Bolton, and a few others was in there. And again, the question was asked, if we hire you, will you bring the Gentlemen's Club here? I'm like, how is this spreading? Why is everybody on this Gentlemen's Club? I knew we were doing great. The number speaks for itself. But if we hire you, will you do the program? Yes, I would love to do the program. So now this is this is alternative school. And to be honest with you, I didn't even know what the alternative school was about. I didn't know what the clientele was at all. So I accepted the position. And my first day at school was an eye-opening experience for me. Yes, it was. I'm walking through the halls and I'm hearing profanity and I'm seeing certain things take place. And I'm like, whoa, what is this? What's going on? And I didn't know that it was what it was, alternative school. And these are students, you have the schools will say we have a great school, only 10% issues that we have here. Every school will pretty much tell you there's 10% problems, but the rest, 80, 90% is great. And at an alternative school, that's not the case. That 10% from all those schools make up 100% at the alternative school. They're there for disciplinary actions because of what they done or being accused of doing. And so after settling in with all of that, to make a long story short, that program, along with the Ladies Club program called GEMS, GEMS, Girls Empowering Minds and Spirits, and Miss Shaka, Mia Shaka, who is now history first black woman to referee in the NFL, Mia Shaka. So we worked together, her Ladies Club and my Gentlemen's Club. Huge success. Again, the number spoke for itself. Highest graduation rate in the 2 years. Attendance increase. referrals decrease. I'm saying all this for a reason. Hang in there with me. Attendance increased, referrals decrease. The morale change. Positive impact at an alternative school. We were called to Washington, D.C., members of the Gentlemen's Club. We were asked to be a part at the, first we were invited to Richmond, Virginia, because people had learned about what we were doing and numbers were speaking for itself. So we were invited to come to Richmond, Virginia to speak to, I can't remember the whole forum setting, but there were counselors from across the state and out of the state, councilmen, all type of dignitary were there. And my members had the opportunity to speak. And it was a huge success. And then later, down the road, we got invited to come to Washington, D.C. to speak at the NASBE, NASBE, National Association of School Boards of Educators, the Gentlemen's Club, the alternative high school. Members from the Gentlemen's Club, and I organized it. I took 4 members with me. Their parents came, and we were treated to stay overnight at a beautiful hotel. Dinner, everything was arranged for us, and we spoke to guidance counselors across the United States. We had something there. We were doing a great thing. And then, for whatever reason, they decided to do a shakeup. They decided, and they being the superintendent at the time, Dr. Merrill, did a shakeup. I told you I'm dropping names. Did a shakeup in the school system to where all the teachers at the alternative school now had to reapply for a position to go into a new building. Now, the curriculums wasn't going to change, but because it was a new building, every teacher had to reapply, to include myself. And I sat waiting for an interview that never came. But I got a letter from Human Resources saying to me, thank you, but you were not considered. Thank you for what? Thank you for the interview that I didn't have? So I contacted HR. They said, well, we assumed you had the interview, but you're being assigned to Kempsville Middle School. Why? Why? When the number was speaking for itself. I went back and forth to HR. I spoke to the person who was going to take Mr. Bolton's place. I can't remember his name right now, but he only lasted a few months and resigned. That's another story in itself. Mm-hmm. And so I get to Kempsville Middle School. There for several years. Brought the Gentlemen's Club there to that school. Started a ladies' club at that school. The Gentlemen's Club was such an impact in all these schools that other schools outside of the state of Virginia was contacting me. Received an email from an assistant principal there at the school system in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Received a letter, email from someone in the school division there in Connecticut, as well as Maryland. So now the Gentlemen's Club is being talked about nationally, and others are inquiring about starting a Gentlemen's Club, a ladies' club. And I didn't withhold any information. I shared with them because it's a positive thing. And I shared with them how it came about and what we're doing, some of the things that we're doing. And so it was a huge success. And then things transpired. One principal left, another principal came in. And I wrote about all of this that I'm talking to you about in my book, The Shaping of Our Future Generation, Putting a Plug in the School to Prison Pipeline, which is one of the last books that I've written. I'm an author of 5 books. The last book I wrote was after my retirement, the shaping of our future generation, putting a plug in the school to prison pipeline. In my 19 years, I've seen so many things that should not have happened. I've seen so many times where our black and brown students were being treated harshly, more so than no child should be treated harshly whatsoever. So let's make sure we understand what I'm saying. But when it came to referral and discipline and all of those things, I saw it for myself. No one told me, but I saw particular cases where this student was being treated differently than another student. So are you saying it's a black and white thing? Absolutely. Absolutely. I saw it for myself. I saw how our students, black and brown students, now our students, all of them are our students as a whole. But I saw where black and brown students were being treated harshly, disciplinary actions, as opposed to white students. I think I mentioned that in my book as well, The Shaping of Our Future Generation. And there was many times that I went in to speak on behalf of, especially those who was in my gentleman's club. If by chance they got in any kind of trouble, I was always there, representing, advocating for them, as any other student in the school, any other student. And I think my work speaks for itself. These schools that I named, Plaza Middle School, Lansdowne Middle School, Central Academy Alternative High School, Kempsville Middle School. And I ended my last year at Providence Elementary School. So I think this faculty and staff will speak on my character and the work that I've done. So after getting COVID, my health not in the best of condition, felt it was a time to go ahead and retire. I put in my package to retire. And I thought I was done. I thought I could retire and just enjoy my life. God knows I worked hard. I've been working since I was 14 years old, getting a paycheck. Was working earlier than that when I was selling candy door to door at 11 and 12 years old. But I've been working since I was 14 years old, continuously working. And now it was time to relax and enjoy myself. And then I'm happy to be on social media. Now I'm getting to the heart of the matter. And I saw an interview. And it wasn't an interview with Wavy TV10 or Channel 3 or any other. It was a local, well-known news reporter in her own rights. And I'll shout out her name, Rhoda Live. She was interviewing a family. And I recognized the mother. There was a mother and a grandmother. And I recognized the mother. I said, her face looked familiar. I know her. And they're talking about her child, her son. And I'm like, wait a minute. And she mentioned the child's name. I said, I know that name. He was in my gentleman's club. But he's now a 10th grade student at the high school. I don't think I'll call it the high school right now. But a 10th grade student at the high school. So I'm like, well, what's going on? So I'm watching and I'm listening. And I hear what's happening. So I go back in my file because I kept some records of my program and all the students has been a part of my program. And sure enough, I pulled it out. There the name was and the mother's name because she had to sign documents for him to be a part of the program, as all the parents did. So I decided to call the mother and say, hey, this is Mr. Huntley. I used to be at the Kempsville. She said, yeah, I remember you, Mr. Huntley. How are you? Fine. I said, what's going on? And she told me. I'm like, what? So what her child was accused of, I'm like, wait a minute, that's not the young man I know. Again, he was in my program. I said, well, I want to be a part of this. So they had already had the meeting with the Office of Student Leadership. And the parents decided that we're not going to accept their findings of their ruling. We're going to appeal it. So we're going to the school board. So I said, I want to be a part of that. I need to be a part of that. So I dug up, I went through my files and documents and studied more on the young man and photos of the events that he's been a part with the Gentlemen's Club and truly realized who he was and that couldn't recall any incidents in the school with him and all of those things. So I'm going to speak on his character. And so myself and another dear friend of mine, I spoke to him about it. He too had been employed with the Virginia Beach Public School, but has since left. And so we went together to support the family and to be advocates for this young man. And we both had the opportunity to speak at the school board. Some things that went on at the school board, I was not particularly pleased with a couple of the members, how they were addressing the young man and tried to get the young man to say what they wanted to hear after the young man had already stated what took place. And they kept asking the same question, wanting to get him to change his belief. So when I had the opportunity to speak, I addressed that very same thing. How many times do you want him to answer the same question because you keep getting the same answer? That's not how it should be. The young man, you asked the question, he answered the question. You asked it twice, he answered the same way. You asked him a third time, he said it the same time, same way. So we left that meeting, and to be truthfully honest with you, we were outside, and that same school board member came and met me outside and apologized and said that was not her intent. And we had a conversation, and it was a very pleasant conversation. So after a few days, the family got the notification that the young man will be able to go back to school. Now, I won't share the particulars of what he had done because he really didn't do anything. Matter of fact, he did the right thing, but he was penalized for doing the right thing. He was penalized for doing the right thing. Make that make sense. So he was able to go back to school. And again, I thought I was done. But we had a follow-up interview with Rhoda Live. And from that interview, she has a rather large following, not just in Virginia, but North Carolina, D.C., all over the United States. People are following Rhoda Live. A bit unorthodox, but she's good at what she does. And so we were talking about the School to Pipeline based on my book, School to Pipeline Prison. And others started chiming in. And we talked about it being a movement, that we need to start a movement. And before we knew it, we were like, we might need to do something. But it was somewhat dormant for a minute until I got a phone call from a former student of mine who I'm talking about 10 years or more had passed. She now has a child, a student in middle school, and said, Miss Donnelly, I need to talk to you about my son. I have no one else that I can talk, need help. You helped me when I was at the alternative school, and if you help me, I know you can help my son. So tell me about what's going on with your son. She told me. I said, you got to be honest. I need to know it all. I need to know good and bad. I need to know it all. I need the facts of the case. I need to know everything. Got my friend together again. Had another gentleman that I called up. He got involved. We talked about it. We did a Zoom meeting, the three of us, how we could pursue this. The grandmother from the first case wanted to be involved. The mother wanted to be involved. So like we might have something here. So that's how the movement, 757, the movement, it still takes a village. That's how that was formulated. That's how that was birthed. But we still didn't know what we had. So we go to the Office of Student Leadership. I speak on the young man's behalf. Another member from the 757, the movement, he spoke as well. And so the outcome from that was in the best interest of the family, the student, and the mother was pleased with the outcome, and we were pleased as well. That's two cases. But before I talk about the third case, let me read to you our mission statement. We have a mission statement. And the mission statement, the mission of the primary chapter of 757, the movement, It Still Takes a Village, is to be an advocate for students of color and parents within our public school systems. Our aim is to be our aim is to be an educational watchdog for our communities. We will do this by holding teachers, administrators, counselors, school board members, and superintendents accountable for poor systematic practices as they pertain to our children. We will accomplish this by supporting, showing up, and providing parents with the tools and the necessary resources needed to ensure that the right outcome is reached. Far too long has been the norm that our children are faced with harsh, unfair, unjust, unfounded, unwarranted disciplinary actions administered by school divisions. 757, the movement, is not designed to advocate for students whose disciplinary actions measure up to the nature and cause of the offense, but to ensure that the punishment is warranted and is justified. Our overall objective is to put a plug in the school to prison pipeline. Our vision statement is to ensure that all students of color are treated fairly and justifiably when it comes to discipline, while achieving at his or her maximum potential in a diverse, engaging, and challenging learning environment. So that's our mission, and that's our vision. We advocate for our children to make sure that whatever they did, that the right outcome is achieved. We've had cases elementary school, middle school, and high school. We've had 5 cases. 5 cases up until 2 weeks ago. 5 cases where we've advocated for our children, where we've gone to the Office of Student Leadership and spoke, gone to the school board and spoke, just ensuring that the right outcome is achieved. We've seen far too many times where that's not the case. It may shock some, but perhaps not a whole lot of others will be shocked to the charges that our children receive. Young man running through the hall at school, running through the hallway at school. How many of us have ran through the hallway? Raise your hand. Come on. You know you have run through the hallways. How many of you screamed or laughed loud or hit lockers or knocked on teachers' doors and ran? How many of us did that as children in our youth? Elementary, middle, and perhaps even in high school. You would think they would have learned by then in high school, but, still do childish things because we're still children in the eyes of our parents. But yet some reason, some why, some shape, form, or fashion that our children can't be children. And that's what hits my heart the most. That our children can't be children. That they can't make mistakes. That when they make a mistake, there's no grace, there's no empathy. There's no what children would be children, but we want to correct the issue. Stop running in the hall because it's dangerous. You can trip and fall, hurt yourself. I tell kids all the time at the school system, we're telling you to stop running because you can hurt yourself. I would tell them, this is concrete. This doesn't give. You fall and bust your mouth, your nose, blood, and lose a tooth and break a limb. It doesn't give, people. Stop running. That's why we want you to stop running. For safety reasons. yours as well as those in the hallway with you. But they're still children. So this young man running through the halls with a few of his friends. Teacher comes out of the teacher's lounge and asks him, "Why are you running?" No one answers. She asked him again, "Why are you running in the hallway?" Young man who I got involved in that case and spoke with the parents on how to move forward. He told them why they were running. She takes him to the principal's office, and when it's all said and done, he gets put out of school. Now, I don't know what happened to the other students because, they don't discuss that. We don't have a right to know, and that's fine. That's by law. That's okay. But they put this 6th grade student out of school for running through the halls. Now, his reasoning for running through the halls was, I'm not going to say ridiculous because, again, we're talking about a 6th grade student, a child. He was actually simulating a drill of some sort that goes on in school. That was their reasoning for running, because they were simulating a drill, having fun with it. So they put him out of school. We got involved. I spoke with the parents, and it was too late for me to go to the office, student leadership with them. But we put them in contact with folks in the organization who could tell them what to expect and how to handle themselves and what to do. And when it was all said and done, they were fine with the outcome. I don't think it should have gotten to that. I think that someone should intervene and said, "Listen, this is really no harm here, no foul here. At the least get a kid a lunch detention or detention in school, in school suspension, something for a day." But to put him out of school for that. So that was a case. And there's been others. Total 5. So now we're involved with a case that's pending right now. And I'm not going to get into the particulars right now. It will come up real soon here. Days to come. Again, a lot of these cases did not even have to get to the office of student leadership, did not even have to get to the child being put out of school. Because what they're doing, and I'll say they may not realize it, but then again, I hate to say it, they may, in fact, do realize it. School to prison pipeline. The emotional stress, not only to the child, but to the parents, to the family that you're putting on them. Why? Because their child is simply being a child. The psychological impact could have on that child. Not to mention you're padding their here we go. They're padding their records, stacking referrals, stacking all of these assessments to them, labeling our children. In my gentleman's club, one of the things that I would take my young man to field trip was our very first field trip. School starts with August, September sometime. And I would have my meetings twice a month, shaping them more, preparing them what the program was about, teaching them certain things, morals, respect, how to have respect for themselves as well as others. Implementing all those things before we go on our first field trip in January. Always in January. And our first field trip was always to the Virginia Beach City Jail and Courtroom. We were the only school in the last 10, 15 years or so, the only middle school that students could come to visit the jail and sit in the courtroom. They said they tried it before with other middle schools, but they were not mature enough, did not behave themselves enough. And I reached out to the sheriff, said, but you never had a problem with the gentleman's club, because we've always been well behaved. And he said, you're absolutely right, Mr. Tony. Your program can continue to come. So we were the only middle school that could go. Now the high school students went because that was part of their senior class, but they had to participate in, I believe. But my young men would always go and always be respectful and always dressed appropriately. But I wanted them to see, because we had two mottos as it pertains to the Gentlemen's Club. One of the mottos was this: it doesn't matter where in life you come from, but what does matter is where in life you end up. So it doesn't matter where you come from, but it matters where you, and I would capitalize Y-O-U, it matters where you decide to end up. Because ultimately, the choices we make affects who we are in life and in society. And another motto was this: if you're not on the right path, if you're not on the right path, then the wrong path lies ahead. It's either be on the right path or the wrong path. There's two ways: right, wrong, up, down, left, right. If you're not on the right path, then the wrong path lies ahead. So I wanted them to see what the wrong path looked like when we make bad decisions. How small, big decisions that we make can end us here in jail. And we always had an inmate to speak to my young man. There was always an inmate. He would come into the room, handcuffed, shackled, the whole 9 yards, around his ankles, wrist, everything. Real life inmates doing real life jail time. And 99% always said their trouble started in middle school. When they started misbehaving, started not listening, not wanting to follow instructions with the teachers and with their parents, or whatever the case may be. And majority of them always said, I wish we had a program like what you have. Because if we had a program like you had, I probably wouldn't be in trouble. And that meant a lot, and it was sad at the same time to hear these inmates say that. But that's the truth. So I'm saying two things. One is that you have a successful mentoring program, but you don't support it. You don't get behind it. You don't try to implement it to where it's at every school. Why is that? Ponder over that, if you will. I don't need to. Get my book, School to Prison Pipeline, The Shaping of Our Future Generation. What message are we sending? Why are we hammering our black and brown students? Why are we imposing such harsh a punishment? I got two cases in my head that I remember so vividly. As a matter of fact, when I go to Planet Fitness and I work out, I saw one of my students that was in my program, and he's Hispanic. And I remember his situation. I remember what he was going through. He would tell me that this kid, this white student, would be harassing him, picking on him, and wanting to fight him. And the teacher tried to get guidance to move one of them out of her class. And they wouldn't do it for whatever reason. And the young man would come to me and say, Mr. Huntley, he keeps wanting to fight me. I don't know how much longer I can take it. I don't know what's going on. What's the guidance saying? What's the officer saying? They don't want to move me, Mr. Huntley. Finally, he had enough. Whatever that white student did, that gentleman club member did his thing in that classroom, and they both were fighting. Now, I'm there the day when the parents showed up. My member's mother came by herself. This is when I'm still working 757 movement not existing at the time. The mother shows up, and the white student, his mother and father both showed up, and his father's very irate, as he should be, as he should have been, because his son was involved in an altercation. And what we were so upset about is because he said to me specifically, because I had to try to calm him down in the foyer before I would let him go back to the office. I can't let you go back there with your being all fired up. I need you to calm down, sir. I feel what you're saying. I'm a parent myself. I understand what you're saying, but you just got to calm down just a little bit before I allow you to go back there. He did just that. He said, you don't understand. He said, I've told them to move my son. I told guidance to get my son out of that classroom. And they didn't do it. So here's where I'm talking about. That young man, no issue with his parents whatsoever. The parents' responsibility is solely to take care of their child. That's my main purpose in life, take care of mine and my grandchildren right now. All my children are grown, but I'm still that Papa Bear. But that mother and father did what they were supposed to do. And they went into that office and they dictated what they were going to accept, what they weren't going to accept. You're not doing my child like this because you didn't do your job. Needless to say, to my knowledge, to the best of my understanding, to what I remember, I could be wrong. I've been known to make errors. But nothing happened to that student because I don't recall him missing school. I could be wrong. But I know what happened to my young man. Oh, he went to Renaissance. They sent him to the alternative school. I know that for a fact. He finished the remaining of that school year there. He came back the next year, came back in the 8th grade, got back into my gentleman's club. He became one of my officers. I know he ran for office. But that always bothered me, how they handled that. Again, nothing against the parents taking care of their own. Because that mother came in by herself. No support, no village with her. And had to accept whatever was given to her child. Having not known any options. I saw that young man a month ago. Now, I saw him prior to that at Planet Fitness, but the last time I saw him a month ago, I said, man, I owe you an apology. He said, why is that, Mr. Helnick? I said, man, it bothers me to this day what happened to you and that I didn't do anything for you. And I apologized to him, and I shared that whole story with him about what transpired. He was shaking his head. He's a grown man now, shaking his head in agreements. He said, it's okay, Mr. Helnick. He said, I forgive you. He said, I wouldn't be the man I am today if it wasn't for you. He just got his license as an electrician. I'm very proud of him. But I still remember what he had to endure because he had no one other than his mother to represent him, to speak on his behalf. So these things are very passionate to me because I see it firsthand. And I'm also ever so mindful of the scripture. We that are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak. We that are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak. Our children, they are our future. So, I stated we have a case that's pending right now. We're waiting on a few things to transpire to manifest itself. We're going to do everything in our power to make sure the right outcome is achieved. I mentioned this is not only happening here in Virginia, but I just saw a couple weeks ago, and I presented it at our last meeting, 757, the movement, and we only meet when things come up, when other things need to be addressed. Then either we'll meet on Zoom, or we'll meet here at my house, or we'll go out and meet for lunch or something. And as of right now, it's just 6 of us. But I told them that once we start going public, we're going to hear a lot more cases, and a lot more people are going to be wanting us to be involved. And so we need to certainly get more people to come on board and be with us. Phone call. Okay. Give me 1 second here. There we go. I'm almost done. But I saw where a state representative, Ayanna Pressley, a representative for Massachusetts 7th Congressional District, had a hearing speaking, addressing a gentleman by the name of Mr. Jackson. And she posed these questions. I just saw this on social media. I don't know how old this is, but I think it's really new. I think it's fresh. But she asked him to answer the question, fact or fiction. And this is sitting up there in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. A state representative is asking this gentleman to answer this question, fact or fiction. A 14-year-old has a fully developed brain. Is that fact or fiction? That a 14-year-old has a fully developed brain. Is that fact or fiction? And of course, he answered fiction. Goes on to say that middle schoolers are still learning and growing. Science tells us that the brain isn't fully developed until mid to late 20s, which means children do not have the same judgment, impulse control, or decision-making capacities as adults. Yet, just this week, Republicans just passed legislations that will prosecute children as adults and send them to adult prisons. Fact or fiction? This is what she asked the gentleman. Fact or fiction? The criminal legal system incarcerates black youth at a disproportionately higher rate than white youth. Is that fact or fiction? Fact, he responded. Nationally, black kids are 6 times as likely as white kids to be incarcerated. 6 times as likely to be incarcerated. Far too long, black youth has been disproportionately criminalized, policed, and locked up for normal adolescent behavior, like running through the halls at school. Normal adolescent behavior, rather than receive resources and support that has been proven to help them grow and reach their full potential. Footnote: the Gentlemen's Club, the Ladies' Club, having programs, mentoring programs that would teach them morals, values, how to treat people, how to respond to people, how to be caring and nurturing, how to help around the house and do your chores and be respectful. I'd have my Gentlemen's Club members at times, we would come in, have them come in early in the morning and be there before even the teachers be there. Be at the door and open the doors for the teachers and tell them good morning. Have the door open for a teacher coming into school saying good morning, have a wonderful day. I'd have my young men, when you go into the classroom, every time you go in there, go to the teacher, ask them how they're doing. Good afternoon, Mrs. Jones. How is your day? Good morning, Mr. Smith. How is your day? Greeting, and you'd be surprised how it moves a teacher, because teachers are human. They have issues that they're going through at home themselves, in traffic, getting to work, all manner of things. We're all human. But I wanted my children, my students to show empathy and respect and greet their teachers when they walk into a classroom. Take a second to ask them how their day is. And the responses that I was getting from our teachers, Miss Dillon, you don't know what that child did for me. It was so pleasant to see that sweet face and that voice, and just to ask me how my day was. It meant so much to these teachers. I didn't print out the other one, but there was a third one that she asked them fact or fiction. But I think you get the gist of what we're saying here. If you want to learn more about the cases, they're on my website. You can go to B-Ray, R-A-Y-E, BRayHuntleyEnterprises.com, BRayHuntleyEnterprises.com, and you'll see a lot of bullets there. And one of them is called 757, The Movement. You can just click on that. And there's other things on the website, the Gentleman's Club, and my books and all kind of things about who I am, what I represent, and the things that I've been involved in, even from a pastoral, my church and my church affiliate and all that stuff. Everything's about Bobby Huntley. You'll see on that website. In fact, when people talk to me, ask me questions, I said, listen, I don't need to be rude or anything, but you can go to my website. Trust me, everything is there. Biography, everything is there. Everything is there. BRayHuntleyEnterprises.com. I think you see the book there, The Shaping of Our Future Generation, putting the plug in the school to prison pipeline, available on my website. And my Gentleman's Club, I had a parent that asked me, said, Mr. Huntley, would you write a book for mothers? I'm like, what do you mean write a book for mothers? I don't know what you're talking about. Well, you can, single mothers, help us with our children. We see what you're doing is very positive, but if we can just have something tangible in our hands to read. And so for a few years, I contemplated that. I'm like, I don't know how to go about doing this, but it wasn't until I was at the alternative school. Excuse my chairs, need some oil grease. I don't want you to think it's my knees. Not quite yet. But at the alternative school, as a dean of student, in my office, some classroom had monitor devices, cameras in there. Some of the classes that was somewhat disruptive, they've had cameras in there. And I'd have the monitor on my desk, so I'm able to see live feed in that particular classroom. I could switch to whatever class, but I'm, at times would watch it, making sure things are okay, especially if we had a substitute teacher monitoring that or what have you. This particular case, I think it was a substitute teacher there, and I'm seeing this student, he's throwing paper, and we've had, I've had talks with him before about his behavior, and he's crawling on the floor, harassing other students. I'm watching this for quite some time because I love having evidence. I love, having my facts together. So I felt it was time to call the mother in and let the mother see exactly what's going on. Now, it wasn't recorded. It was live. It's a live feed. It's live. So I called the student in, and I called the mother. The mother came in, and I had the two of them. And I purposely had the monitor turned in such a way that the mother could see the monitor. So I'm telling her about her student's behavior. And I told her, I said, now, ma'am, I said, what you see in classroom, I said, now, those what you see is live. It's not being recorded. It's actually happening right now. Those kids, this is your son's classroom. This is where he was sitting. And I pointed to his chair that's empty because he's sitting here with us. And this is what I observed. And I told her what he was doing. And the mother turned to her son and said, did you do that? He said, no, Mom, I didn't do that. She said, well, he said he didn't do it. This is what she turned back to me and said, he said he didn't do it. I said, I'm sorry, excuse me? Ma'am, I just told you this is a live feed. This is what's happening right now. I'm watching him with my own eyes. I said, you see what this child is doing right now? Your eyes are telling you what this kid, if I brought that kid in, they would probably say they didn't do it. But you saw it with your own eyes. This is what I'm telling you. And she said, it's not recorded. You don't have any proof. I said, oh, okay. It was a telltale as to why the student behaves it the way the student behaves. I come just that straight. And so it was other incidents that occurred. I had one young man at the alternative school. I was talking about his behavior, the way he's wearing his clothes or something. He said, I'm a man like you a man. I said, I'm sorry. You said what? He said, I'm a man like you a man. I said, how old are you? 14 years. I said, so you a man. I said, you got a pay stub? You got a driver's license? What bill you paying at home? You paying water bill, light bill? You know, what are you doing? How are you significant? What type of input do you have at home? How are you contributing to society? And I said, let me tell you something, young man. I said, you're a young man, but you're not a man. Who told you were a man? My mama told me I'm a man. Oh, she did. So I said, you know what? Mothers, please stop it. Please, mothers, please. Stop telling these boys, these young men, that they're men. Because they're the only male in the home does not constitute them being a man. It takes a whole lot of responsibility to be a man. And we have some men that are out here, 20, 30, 40, 50 years old, who are not acting like men. And you're putting that responsibility on that child. Let that child be that boy. Let him be that young man. Let him grow into and mature into manhood. I left home at 18 years old to join the Marine Corps. I thought I was a man at 18 until I got into the Marine Corps. It was a whole new awakening for me. Being around some grown men, some instructors, taught me how to shave, taught me how to take care of myself. Now, my mother nurtured me. My mother, you know, I groomed and all of that stuff and had much respect for women and my mother and my sisters, and a good kid all around. But my mother did not teach me how to be a man. Why? Because a woman cannot teach a boy how to be a man. It's not in their DNA. Simply can't do it. You're not equipped. You don't know how to handle those particular conversations into manhood. As it's like a man does not know how to handle a little girl until womanhood. Had to get another lady to talk about certain issues. Show them how to respond and do certain things. It takes a woman to teach a girl how to be a woman. It takes a man to show a boy how to be a man. That's fact. So in here I list 8 mistakes that single mothers make in raising their sons. 8 mistakes. And this book is not a book to put down single mothers, because my mother raised us for the most part by herself. It's not a book to put down single mothers. It's a book to uplift, to encourage. And I'll give them 8 mistakes. And all the mothers that read this book always say, Mr. Huntley said, you're right. I didn't know I was doing those things, but I see now from your book, yeah, I'm guilty of that. And that's okay. When you don't know, you don't know. So in here I list 8 mistakes that they make, and they also have solutions. I tell you, I always come with solutions. I don't come with questions. I come with solutions. So I said a lot, and I appreciate your time, and I knew it was going to be long. Thank you. I knew it was going to be long, but it's just so much that's been on me. And you're going to start seeing 757 The Movement coming up in social media feeds, perhaps being interviewed by the news media, because of the direction we're going in. We actually have a meeting date with the mayor, Bobby Dyer, the Virginia Beach mayor. We'll be meeting with him, I believe it's December the 3rd, when we come back from Thanksgiving break. This is like a follow-up meeting with him, because in 2024 we met with him, myself and other members of the 757 movement. And he had talked about us meeting, getting the superintendent involved in the meeting with us, as well as the school board. But we're going to make sure those things happen this school year. It's imperative. 757, the movement, it still takes a village. We're here to represent our children, black and brown children, children of color, simply to make sure that we're being treated fairly. Far too long, that's not been the case. I don't have the statistics, the numbers, but I have the cases, actual cases. The numbers are there, because Ms. Dillon got the numbers years ago at Lansdowne Middle School. The numbers are there. They have to keep track of the numbers. Be interesting to see what the numbers look like. Let me drop some names of some schools that we've been involved with. Tallwood High School, Larkspur Middle School, Corporate Landing, SeaTac, Brandon. There's another one that I'm not disclaiming at this time. But ironically, this school that we're dealing with now just got a call yesterday of another student from the same school that's had a situation that occurred. And this hits personal with me because we know the family. I know the young man. I've known this young man for quite a few years now. The outcome was reached was very favorable, but it did not have to get to that point. It did not have to get to that level. It did not. Common sense should have prevailed. Common sense should have prevailed. It did not have to go to him being suspended from school. Please, let's look at our children or these students that's in your care. Perhaps try to look at them as if they're your own child and how you would want people to handle or deal with your child, your son, your daughter, your grandson, your granddaughter, your niece, your nephew. And then be respectful and do what is right. Do what is right. I understand the letter of the law. I understand things are in black and white, but there's always some human part to it because we're dealing with human beings. We're dealing with a child whose mind is not fully developed. And you want to hold them, especially children of color. You want to put so much pressure on them. The last school office student leadership meeting I was in about 3 or 4 weeks ago, they were asking the 6th grade student, this 11-year-old student, question that he had no inclination of knowing how to answer, was asking that young man's question when his guidance counselor should have been asked that question. And I'm like, really? You're asking him that question? How is he to answer that? How is he to obtain that information? So make it make sense. Make it make sense. So I'll show you the third of 5 books. I'm going to show you this last one. This book here was co-authored by myself and Paul Arrington, The Gentleman's Club. It's a character development mentoring program to show you how to start your own mentoring program. The Gentleman's Club. Self-help book to show you how to start a mentoring program. And I believe that if we had these mentoring programs in place in every school, we can alleviate a lot of the issues. We could help these children to make right decisions, yet still allow them to be children. And that when they err, because they will err, because I'm 65 years old, I have to pause because I think about my age, 65 years old, and at times I still make mistakes at 65. And I learn from them and I move on, hope to never make them again. But things happen because life is life. So I think I've told you enough about 757 the movement. I think I've told you enough about who I am. If I haven't, go to my website, brayhuntleenterprises.com. B-Ray, R-A-Y-E, huntleenterprises.com. Thank you for tuning in. I pray that what I said was meaningful to you, perhaps a revelation to some. But let's open our eyes and open up our hearts. And let's do what's right. Let's be fair across the board. God bless you. Thank you. To God be the glory.